Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Awesome. So I'm gonna set it up. Yeah, yeah.
I think they can say, I have to get to the 6. Oh, what meeting? Rotary.
Yes. Okay. It's actually up.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah, we did.
It's high tech, but it's gonna have to work.
Oh, oh gee, it was kind of chicken.
It's out of your way, don't worry.
Yes. You can grab the glass right here. Yeah, I'll just help you some. It's not. Yeah, I hope this thing's like.
Introduce you as a possible
Sure.
launching plan for the men.
Yeah, big,
Great.
yes.
Awesome.
Corey, it's rolling.
You should have the motivation to get where was it?
Welcome, everybody. We're so fun to have you tonight. This is a fun night for us. We've got a fabulous speaker that I think everyone's going to enjoy, that will get us thinking about what we can be doing and what we can be learning and where we can go from here. So we've got Sarah back tonight, but just to introduce our organization for some of you that haven't been able to join us before, we are now officially the Proactive Alliance. We started as a positivity project, and then we heard that that was maybe legally already taken. So we decided to just step out of legal gray zone and get official. So we have our website. We've got business cards we can share with you if you'd like to take some. But our website is live. We've got a Google Calendar on that. We are active and just thrilled to have you all. We're doing a monthly speaker series. So we're generally doing that the first Wednesday of each month, depending on things like 4th of July. We're going to tweak it. So stay tuned for that. And just thrilled to have you all. It's wonderful to have so many faces here that want to be savvy and involved.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Odell, and I'm here. Luckily, I get the good job of introducing our speaker, who is Sarah Buck. She's currently the head of Salt Lake Indivisible, and you'll find out a lot more about that organization. But I first heard Sarah speak on April 5th, I believe it was, at the Hands Off rally in Salt Lake, and she was on the Capitol steps. And she really energized me. You know, I was one of the many who were sitting at home thinking, what can I do? What can I do? And she really energized me with 2 simple messages: show up and don't give up hope. And luckily for us, Sarah's been showing up her whole life with working on lots of campaigns. And crazy enough to keep doing it. Been with Salt Lake Indivisible since 2016, started, and is now the leader, as I mentioned. And Salt Lake Indivisible really is very pro-democracy in general. But of course, the first 4 years of the Trump administration, it was very resistance focused to what was happening there. And unfortunately, we've come full circle, and it's back to resisting the Trump agenda again. Although we've done some work with Better Boundaries, you know, to engage Utah voters and keep them interested in making sure we've all got a fair vote. So I just want to say that, well, we were just having a little meeting before everybody got here, and she said just today, it's never been more important to do the work we're doing. And that's kind of why I think we're all here. So I'm excited to hear from Sarah. And thank you for showing up. Thank you for giving us hope. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. I already commented that we meet in an old church, so you guys are starting off right. This is such a lovely space that you meet in, and it's really heartwarming to show up in a community and have people who are waiting and wanting to do the work. And there is a lot of work to be done, but I think a lot of us don't know exactly how to step into this moment. And what I'd say to you is, I don't think there's a wrong way to step in. I think some ways may be more effective and some ways may appeal more to you. And I think that's part of what you want to find out in this time is, you know, what's the best and highest use of your abilities. And we all have different abilities. So keep that in mind when you're frustrated that maybe you just haven't found the right thing. I found politics at a very young age. I realized when someone recently asked me that I remember watching the Watergate
trial when I was in second grade. And caring about it, like asking questions at the dinner table. And I didn't grow up in a particularly political family, so they all thought I was weird, that I cared about this stupid trial. But it followed me my whole life. It became something I just cared about. And I was saying I was at the Million Mom March with my two kids, some of my favorite pictures of all time, except that we've gone backwards on gun control and I've watched all of that. And I guess I never give up hope because we also are always moving forward in so many ways. And we can't expect that we're gonna win everything we step into. But to step into it is the important part. And you honestly, I've often said during Trump's first 4 years, we opened so many bottles of champagne because we felt responsible for so many of the ways that his work was taken down, stopped, and to us, you know, upended. And when you're doing the work, you feel responsible. You get to celebrate it. You get to feel that, oh, we are making a difference. And keep in mind, the wins are often in the margins. And you have to learn to celebrate the small things. But it does, the small things matter. They add up. And we're seeing that now. You know, this latest Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs was started by a wine vendor in California. It wasn't some massive big, it was someone who was impacted, who decided to step in and file a lawsuit. And because of that action, and then a bunch of states joined in. And so there's always this bigger coordination that gets you there. But it took that person stepping up and stepping in. So you don't always know how your actions will move forward, you know, and sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it happens very quickly. I started with Salt Lake Indivisible. I'm sure all of us probably remember when the night that Trump was elected and feeling so like shocked that that happened in our country. And I heard about a meeting at a church that was near my house. And there were over 100 people at the first meeting. And that night I volunteered to be in leadership. And 9 years later, I am still standing. In that time, we've had 3 different leaders. Our first leader was Joanne Slotnick, who some of you may know. And she was an attorney, which was really good for this beginning foundational work. And then we had Greg Schultz, who was a really dynamic, brilliant guy that talked me into being his co-leader because he didn't want to do it alone. And just said, I just need to have a co-leader. You don't have to do anything. Just listen to me and my ideas. And then he moved to Mexico City. We worked together about 3 years and then he decided to move to Mexico City. So the co-leader became the leader. And when I was reflecting on that, one of the things I realized is that organizations, I kind of think, end up with leaders for the time that you're in. And I was thinking how Joanne is super type A, she's an attorney. She pays so much attention to the details. She micromanaged a lot of things because she could, because she was like superwoman. And she got us, foundationally, she set us up very well. And then Greg, as I said, truly a brilliant guy, zero attention to details. And, but really fun and really creative. And I think he started when Joe Biden came in. And I'll say, so the Indivisible groups started they were started by staffers who worked during the Obama administration. And when we were all, sitting in our houses crying, they were creating this idea of indivisible. And they rolled it out very shortly after Trump was elected. And so, it was really free form at the beginning. There was very little other than this document that kind of said, like, you have to do the work. And here's how Washington works. And so I would say to you that indivisible in its roots and in its current form is very much focused on a functioning government. And it's in this moment, it sometimes feels like we don't have a functioning government, but we have to keep pushing for that and expecting that and showing up for that. I truly believe that our function as citizens is to demand that our government function and that it follow the Constitution and that it follow the rule of law. And those should be really basic. But we are having to demand that in this moment. And I think I think you probably all feel the same angst I do, that I'm saying that out loud, but it is the reality of a group that wants to dismantle the government as we know it. And I often say, and they can do a lot of that legally. They could pass bills to get rid of the USAID. They could pass bills to do almost everything that they've done illegally. They could have done legally. And I think it's important for us to ask why they aren't doing that. And they aren't doing that because they know that isn't popular. They don't want to have those debates. They don't want to have to stand up and say they're dismantling and taking away. They're holding these meetings through the middle of the night so that you don't watch them on C-SPAN. Not that many of us ever watch it on C-SPAN, but they really are trying to do a lot of this under the cover of doing it quickly, doing it in the middle of the night, and dismantling things from a financial standpoint. And so, all of that's super concerning. But where we have to step in is to constantly come back to, we live in a country that is governed by this document of a constitution. And we are a democracy that operates under rule of law. And that extends to everyone. I think the good news is the courts are holding the middle. I think I heard 160 lawsuits filed since this administration started. And 97% of the decisions have landed against the Trump administration. Now, those haven't all been decided. So I can't remember that because I'm over 60. You're really lucky I got those other two numbers out. There's another one in there I can't remember. So the courts are holding, and that's super important. I think in this time, one of our requirements is to push our Congress to hold, because they're not doing their job and they're not following the Constitution. And I could go on and on about what they're not doing. And our job, if we just pause for a minute, is to keep demanding and holding them to do their job. And I'm sure you guys are all people who have 5 calls on your phones, and you're making those calls to make that happen. And it is discouraging. I will give you that it often feels like nobody's listening. But this didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to get fixed overnight. And I think that honestly, the pressure that people are applying and the courts that's what's making the difference right now. And I really think that you understand that, and that's why you're here. One of our sayings at Indivisible is action over anxiety. And having, been in the leadership group with Indivisible for 9 years, people often will say to me, how do you keep doing this? And I really want to say to them, how do you not do anything? Because for me, to read the news and do nothing, I truly can't do that. So I would have to choose to both quit reading the news and do nothing. Because the only thing that gives me solace is taking action. And as I said to you, I don't only take action, I take credit when things go right. So I truly do have this sense, and maybe that's unrealistic, but I really believe that part of that we do manifest these things. In my other job, I'm a visualization coach, so I live what I teach, and I truly believe that we the people are what makes a difference. And that was how it was designed, and it goes through periods where we need less interaction and more interaction, and definitely we're in a period of more interaction. I think that there's a lot that we can find hope in right now. I think one of the things I find hope in is this system is coming down. I think we all feel that in so many ways. And it won't be recognizable at the end of the school years. And maybe we are in a moment where we need to ask ourselves what we want it to look like. Because it is an imperfect system. And anyone who's been engaged in any level of lobbying or lawmaking will tell you that it is an imperfect system. And so I really do try to focus on that there's hope in what we can do in the absence of what we know. And so I say that, and that's hard because I'm telling you to stay in the system, because that is what we have. But don't give up that there could be good things that come out of this, because I think there's a whole lot of unknown in this moment. I think there are a lot of knowns too, and we do know that this is an incredibly corrupt person who is at the helm with incredibly corrupt people around him. And I think those are the things that we should be really pounding our representatives about: the lawlessness, the lack of ethics, the extortion that's taking place by the president of the United States. To me, those are all, a lot of that's rule of law, not the Constitution. So there's this interesting dance that's going on right now. And I guess I would say I'm not one to sit out when there's a dance going on. I'm gonna get in there and step on some toes, even if I don't know what the steps are. I think that you guys are commendable to show up tonight. But I think the other thing we have to realize is this is going to be a marathon. And we're going to need to bring more people in so that we can take rests when we need to. And that we need to support each other in lots of ways. And as well as doing work, I think what you'll find, what I have found in this work, is you develop community with people. And I think that's probably one of the other huge important takeaways from coming together. Salt Lake Indivisible has gone from as we started, we did mostly resistance work. I recall being at a senator's office and one of our members, who was probably in her 80s, got arrested. Because we didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't know that when they told us we had to leave, that we didn't get to say, no, this is my building, I can stay here. It was unfamiliar to us, and now I would say we know very well what the rules are. And under this administration, I think we're all trying to adhere to them because they're wanting us to step over the line. I think peaceful, everything needs to remain peaceful. We're really, I hear a lot of, especially young people talking about, we need civil disobedience, we need, and I really feel like that's kind of stepping right into what the administration wants us to do. I think that we need to remain peaceful, joyful. And in this moment, sometimes that's really hard, but if we let them steal our joy, they have won. And so when we come together at our events, we really try to make them joyful. We went with music, with bubble machines, with art. I just think we need to kind of pull it all in when we're doing this. And yes, there are some very sober things that we end up doing, but finding joy even in seeing the number of people that are standing by your side and that are standing next to you and that you know you can count on. I think that your leadership team has done amazing things already. When we just had our little gathering and I came to an event that they helped put on in the community with Adam Kinzinger. And I think you guys have a lot of resources in your community. I mean, the fact that someone's donating a room for you already, that like all of these are important because this is support. And it's it's tangible. And it matters that you're being supported in the community that you're in. I could talk forever because I was a teacher. So I do want to say, I can keep talking, but I also want to have time for questions if anybody has specific questions. I recently, and I'll share this little story with you. I'm going to sit down. Is that cool? So I'm trying to come up with the abbreviated version. As I said, I've been in politics most of my life, and I married a man who was in the Navy. And my politics were not probably career enhancing. But he retired. So we did, he did 20, I did 13 of those years. And when we moved to Salt Lake, I realized, and I pushed for us to move to Salt Lake, but I realized, here I am in another place where being a liberal is, I mean, Salt Lake, it's good to be a liberal, but in Utah, it's an odd thing to be a liberal, you know, and I found myself thinking, I must be drawn to being the underdog in some way. This must be my destiny. But as a military wife, I also ended up stepping away from my career because we moved every 3 years and he flew off with a carrier and there were lots of complications in that. So in my 50s, I had this moment where I thought, I looked at many of my friends who had these awesome careers and I thought, I wish I was an expert at something. And didn't regret my choices, but I was envious. I was envious of my friends who had expertise. And, you know, that kind of passed. And then recently, when Bernie Sanders and AOC came to Salt Lake City, they reached out to Salt Lake Indivisible to see if we could help with the volunteers for that event. And I said, of course we can do that. And they said, well, we're going to open it up to some other organizations because we need help. And I said, well, how many do you need? They said, we need about 200. I said, I can have them in 24 hours. And it'll be so much easier for you to work with just one organization. Give me 24 hours. And let's see. So they put together the sign up stuff and we put it out. And I will say Salt Lake Indivisible currently has 3,000 members. And we have close to 1,000 that qualify as active members. So that means they're actually taking our actions. So we put it out there. And then they asked me to help them find speakers for the event. And when I got off the call with them, I thought, oh, I wish I could speak at that event. But they had told me what they wanted, and they wanted people who'd actually been impacted by the things that were happening. So I put them in touch with Catholic Community Services. I put them in touch with a person that I knew who'd been laid off from. So I put them in touch with some folks. And then we kept having exchanges, and we did fill up the 200 slots within 24 hours. They were super impressed with that. And originally, we were actually told it was only going to be Bernie that was coming. And we had a few exchanges, and in those exchanges, I said, we'd really like to have AMC. Should we do a call campaign to her office? And they said, no, you keep calling your senators, but we'll tell her that you're threatening to do that. And then 20 minutes later, they called and said, she's coming. And I was thrilled because honestly, I think she is the epitome of what an elected official should be. And watching her career and the way she represents her people has always made me feel like I have no representation comparatively. So I was personally thrilled she was going to be coming. And then he said to me, so we've been talking in the office and we've decided that we want to ask you to be one of the speakers. And first of all, I'll tell you, because I do visualization and manifestation and all those things, there was definitely a piece of me that went, I'm so glad I said I wanted to do that. And then it did come to fruition. But when the event was all over and I was talking to my younger daughter, I had this realization, because she watched it on a live YouTube channel or something, and she was saying, Mom, you're so great, and you weren't nervous and worse. And I had this realization that all these years doing all this work, I had become an expert at something. Mm-hmm. And that I think that's where I say our best and highest calling isn't always revealed to us. And we have a whole life to step into that. We have a whole life to find that. And in this moment, I think we are all called in different ways, and we don't always know the outcomes of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But that's part of the magic, and it's part of the inspiration. And it makes me excited to look at this group of women who have this vision to make a difference in your community first and foremost, and then this broader problem that we've got in Washington, D.C., that we all have to do our part. And I just think it's a really, I would never wish for what we have going on, but I also know that there are amazing things that come out of these horrible situations. And I think we can all think back on our life and realize that we can't project everything that's going to happen, but we can make a difference in the moment that we're in. So thank you for having that disposition that you're here to make a difference. Our motto of action over anxiety, we send out a newsletter just once a month. That's kind of one of our rules. We send it out. We have over 60%, I think it's 63% open rate, which anybody in the industry will tell you is phenomenal. We try to make action items within the newsletter where you can click and take an action right then and there. Whenever we go to an event, we always have to have an action item, whether it's take postcards or voter registration, or that we don't get together and just complain about we have to take actions that can make a difference. And honestly, the calling your representatives, that was part of my morning coffee routine. The staff all know me. And I'm not rude. I actually am very nice because my daughter also works in DC, and I know that those are usually interns that are paid next to nothing, and they have no power. So, it's speak in a way that makes people want to listen, is what I always say to myself before I pick up that phone. But there are lots of ways to take actions, and I think you guys are going to be doing the freeway overpass project on the 14th, and that's an awesome way somebody came up with to step into this moment, and I won't steal the thunder on that. But I think there's a lot of good that comes out of awful, is what I've come to believe. So if you guys have specific questions, I'd be hopeful I could answer.
You talked about effective ways to step in. Beyond 5 calls, postcards, what are some of the things that you have found to be effective?
So
Or Indivisible has found?
well, so I'm promoting this one, and a lot of people are like, oh, you are out of your mind. And I am a little bit, I acknowledge that. But so in this current situation, I think, when we have protests, we're preaching to the choir, essentially. However, I will say mass mobilizations are super important in this moment. Super important. They are, in the simplest terms, we need to make our representatives as afraid of us as they are of Donald Trump. And numbers are how we do that. So anybody who says nothing good comes out, like, what's the point? We need to, the hands off, we had 7.5 million. For the Snow Kings, we're hoping to have at least 10 million nationwide. So if you haven't already committed to showing up to one of those events, please do. But that wasn't your question. The moment I have found in this space is every day when we're out and about, there are many opportunities where people say to us, how are you? And we say fine. And in many of those spaces that question gets asked, it is a very good opportunity to say something like, I'm really worried about our public lands being sold off by this Trump administration. And what I find when I do this is it does make people uncomfortable. And I'm not trying to make the cashier or a person who asked me that question uncomfortable. But what I have also found is it often creates conversation of people in the line. And so I think that there are lots of everyday things that we can learn to utilize. And again, always thinking about speaking in a way that makes people want to listen. And I struggle with that sometimes. So I have to think, it's very planned when I'm doing what I'm going to say. And I have been amazed at how often it creates a conversation, whether it's in a coffee shop or in the grocery store. And that's just one simple thing. So I think we have to look for those kinds of opportunities. And that's one of the things I love about the overpass messages is you're reaching a group who didn't show up to a protest. And if they see the message that the GOP is gutting Medicaid, they might go home and read about it. They might be intrigued. And especially, one of the things I think that's great is we've got a lot of American flags at those events. We also are partnering with them. And I think people don't know whose message it is sometimes. I mean, when we say the GOP is gutting Medicaid, they probably do know. But depending on the message, and we do try to craft messages that aren't caustic, messages that make people more curious than defensive. And so those are things you think about when you're doing this. But I think that, to me, those are two great examples of really pretty simple actions that I think can have a big impact. I'm also one of those annoying people who doesn't wear earpods on airplanes or on buses, and I talk to people. And I think that the art of engagement is really underrated right now and super, super important. So I would say to engage with people and strangers, not always engaging with our safe people. Thank you.
I'd like to recommend a book.
Okay.
It is Start with Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action. And it starts with, why are we here? Why is this important to us? Anyway, it's a good book. I'll leave it out here in case you want to photograph it with your phone or something.
And have you finished it?
I'm most of the way through it.
Okay, and it's a worthwhile read.
It's a worthwhile,
Okay, thank you.
it really is. And it makes me wonder why we don't consider independence or running as independents. Because there are so many people, as I talk to people in Utah, who just can't vote for a Democrat. They don't like Trump. They don't like what he's done, but they just can't vote for a Democrat. So an independent who can sell themselves is someone who simply wants to be what's right. The least among us. Let's care for them. Let's not allow them to fall through the cracks. I think if we can learn to express those things and inspire other people to hear us, that even those who can't press a D can press an I.
Right. Well, and to your point, Republicans and Democrats don't ever decide elections. Independents do. The independent vote is the swing,
Which is whichever way it goes.
and so the problem is the money. And that is part of what leveling the system could do, is that we could rewrite the election rules, because money is a huge part of the problem. It's a huge part of how we got here. I think many people remember the Citizens United decision, and we were warned that corporations would be running America. And here we are. And that was during Obama's administration. So it wasn't that long ago. So yeah, that is the independent vote is a super powerful group in our country. And I suspect it may get bigger in this moment. Yeah.
Doesn't the independent vote often split the Democrat and Republican, and then the Republican wins?
Well, when there's an independent candidate, yes,
Yes, that's what I meant.
yes.
Sorry.
And I'm suggesting an independent candidate. And does it split the vote? I guess it all depends on the message.
We're also seeing the movement towards ranked choice voting where that's not a concern anymore.
Okay.
And that,
Not in this state.
Oh, yeah.
you didn't,
Well, we did.
We did, and then we did.
tried, and then we didn't.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the legislature took all the money away for that.
It was you can discuss it.
It had passed and city council had passed it. And then the following week, they decided, oh, no, we've decided that's not a good idea, and they retracted. Yeah, and I would love for you to go talk to our city council of why it is good choices. And not wherever they were getting their information from. Apparently, us seniors couldn't figure out how to do it, so
It was too confusing.
it was too confusing.
And that was one person on the council who changed his mind while he was on vacation,
Yes.
who asked for a revote and switched his vote.
That's interesting. Yeah, we have it in Salt Lake City.
Mhm.
And actually, the legislature originally, and this is kind of a funny Utah story, rolled out a ton of money for it. We thought that they would be doing lots of voter education with that money. But what they did was candidate education, and they thought ranked choice voting was a chance for them to flip a bunch of Democratic seats, which honestly, they already had a supermajority.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, it's sort of sick. But, so we were doing voter education with no budget. And they took almost the entire budget that the legislature gave them and did candidate education. Which kind of goes against I mean, the whole idea behind ranked choice voting is the people being closer to, and the idea of, we choose. But, and I think that there was a pilot across the state, and I want to say there were and that's probably when it got voted on up here too. I think there were about 15 cities that tried it. But I think it took extra money to get the computer systems and stuff. And I think I don't know that it will be continuing. I'm not sure if it's continuing. because the money-
It sunsets in
It's
2026.
That's right.
Yeah, but that's that would get rid of the whole, there are lots of things I like about ranked choice voting. And I like that you need to be more civil. Because if you're not the first choice, you want to be the second choice. And if you're totally attacking, it's less likely to.
So much more cost effective.
Yeah, yeah, because you don't have to have primaries. Yeah, so actually, funny story on the ranked choice voting. So Indivisible actually got super involved when that was getting looked at. And so we were all calling our city council members to tell them we wanted them to approve it. And there was a particular council member who just was kind of like, don't tell me how to do my job. It's kind of what his response was. Well, he happened to be my representative. And so one night we started talking, and Greg, who used to be the leader, the one who I said was a genius, said to my husband and I, one of you needs to run for city council. And he said, we need to get rid of him. He doesn't think he works for these people. And I said, well, I'm not city council, I get to F you way too fast to be on city council. That is not my calling. I kind of know I'm a disruptor. And so then we talked my husband into it. And he is now serving his second term as Salt Lake City Council member. And I've learned a lot in watching, and it's informed me in how I deal with officials. It's made me much kinder than it used to be, because it is a job, but people become it becomes very personal and very attacked. And so that's been a really good thing for me to learn from that experience. And he's actually now retired from his other work, and he loves doing the city council work. So it's been a great thing.
That's a great segue, because we have city council seats that are coming up in Park City in the fall. The mayor also race is coming up in the fall in November, so we can get active
in that way, and I think there's a few other things, but if there are any more questions, we'd like to thank Sarah, and then we have some announcements before we move into the mixed portion. Yeah.
Can I ask a quick one? How have you seen sort of Indivisible's tactics change from Trump 1.0 to 2.0, if at all? Like, do you see it being consistent, or what are some of the shifts that you see?
Well, so one of the things I think we're gonna see more and more of is, I think we're gonna go after businesses more. Because I think in what we're experiencing is that,
From rolling over, going after businesses to stop.
well, like Elon Musk,
Like
I think we're
Tesla
gonna see
takedown.
more like the Tesla takedowns.
Okay.
Because that was effective. Now, do I think that Elon Musk walked away with a bunch? I'm not a fool. I know Elon Musk gained a lot. But I also know that the pressure that was put on him is part of why he left Washington, and now he's coming out again. I mean, it's not a perfect example, but I think what we saw there was the power of the people and the purse. And it's happening with Target. And I think that there's an airline now, a Velo, who is actually flying. And they're being targeted. I think we're gonna see more and more of that because the pressure on Congress isn't working the way it normally does. And I'll be honest, and I've met with Curtis and Curtis staff and several other, they're afraid of Trump. And
Oh, yeah.
and I'm not giving them an excuse. This is their job. They signed up and they need to be brave and they need to step up and do it. But I do think that he is like a mob boss. He is not like a president. And I think we need to remember that when we're dealing with members of Congress. Because again, just that attack, he's attacking them and then we're attacking them, and who do you want to help?
What are they afraid of? I mean, they're not the ones being supported. Is it just their careers or they're just?
Well, no,
They like power.
no, it is, I think they fear for their families. The way judges have been, the pizzas being delivered, there's a lot of intimidation taking place, and I agree with what you're saying on it's absolutely 100%. But I think I think what I would counter is the level of corruption we have never seen. And I do think even Washington is awestruck by it. And like, I think Curtis really had no idea what he was stepping into. I just don't think I don't know that people thought Trump was even gonna win. You know, I think a lot.
Surprised as anybody.
Certainly in 2016. Right, he was surprised, and I don't know, I think we were all surprised. I mean, election night, he was saying they were cheating in Philadelphia. He was ready to pull the same maneuver. So that's not a hopeful note to end on, I'm sorry. We have a mob boss for
May I ask
president.
just a real practical question about planning on the 14th? So we have 50501, we have Indivisible, we have at least 2 events in Salt Lake. Can you clear that one up for me? Yeah,
Well, I want you to come to Indivisibles at the University of Utah.
that's the morning one at the university. It's a rally.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And we were working together. We were originally going to do one together. We couldn't get the capital.
Mhm.
And the last event we had was huge. We were bigger than the capital. And so when we realized we couldn't get the capital, we kind of had this, like, it's okay if we have 2 events. If we split that, the University of Utah can handle 5,000, probably 8,000 people. And downtown can handle, so it wasn't our first choice, but we did accept that. And the 50-51s is going to be a little different. It's more of a march.
Okay.
And it's at 6 o'clock at night, I believe. And ours is at 10 at the University of Utah. We chose the university because we're standing with institutions, so that was a very intentional choice. We have some professor of constitutional law who's gonna speak. We have a documentary filmmaker who's gonna be there. It'll be a really good day, and we'll have action items for you to do that day. Because we aren't gonna have any booths with swag, because we don't do that. We just have action items. And I'm not gonna tell you your action items yet, but you'll be able to come away knowing you showed up and mass mobilized, and you took action that helps make a difference.
Do you have any insight into why you couldn't get the Capitol? Because I looked it up online and they scheduled official Utah business from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on the South Steps that day, which
So
tells me is a way to prevent anybody from getting.
Oh, it's actually a private event.
Oh, it's
They
legit.
rented it out for some Red Bull Derby, so stay away. They're all on Red Bull.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better because I thought they were intentionally putting
No.
stuff in the calendar so protests couldn't happen there.
No, they've been actually great to work with, which makes me happy to say. Yeah.
Happy to hear that.
Do you expect any opposition to be at the protest?
There always is.
I've been to protest.
So honestly, we are prepared, always prepared for that. And one of the things we tell people is if anybody around you starts acting out in an aggressive manner, the people around them should sit down. And then that person is left standing. And that helps us to identify what's happening. We have never had, honestly, they did show up to our Tesla takedowns, and those made me almost sick to my stomach. I was so afraid something was gonna go bad because they were all armed.
I was the one at the Tesla. It was just a few people, but as I recall, the local policeman made one man with his cyber truck and his armor leave the premises.
Yeah.
So, and nothing happened, I mean,
Nothing happened. Well, there's a lot of yelling and one was so bad. And we had 170 people and they had 30, but they had guns. And that freaks me out more than anything in the world. And yet, I was super calm. I got everybody to the other block. I also had a moment where I realized they're fearful. They show up with guns. I show up with my passion. I'm not afraid. And that was wild for me in that moment with people who are armed. I felt some level of empathy for them, that they are afraid of this world that they're in. And that their response is really disgusting. But they're fearful. They're fearful of change. They're fearful of being left behind. And we haven't had any problems. At the big hands off, they were there and they stayed very much on the outside because there were so many of us. Sorry, guys. Should I stop?
We do need to wrap it up,
I'll hang,
but
and we could talk.
We'll have time after for mixing and mingling, but we have a little business we want to talk about before we go to the mixers portion. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
That's actually, okay. So thank you so much, Sarah. That was great. It was kind of nice that you gave us some extra time. So interesting. Happy Pride Month. We had a great time. We helped launch off the, oh, yes, we helped launch off, okay. So there are pride flags here and there's a couple of stickers. Please help yourself and take them off and hang them. Because you probably don't live in a public building. And if you would like to give a donation, we are a scrappy little skeletal group and we're starting to have more technology and more things available and postcard mailing and all of that wonderful stuff. We provide everything for you when you come and join us on Sundays. But we do need donations for keeping our website up and some of the background stuff that goes into the technology. And we're not asking for anything. So if you want to throw, anything in here, 5 or 10 or whatever, but please take a pride flag. Those were given to us from the Park City Community Foundation. It's so nice. And wanted to let you all know that we went to the Utah Democratic Caucus on Saturday, and we now officially have a chair of District 4 and a co-chair of District 59. So you've got a lot of Summit County and Park City represented here, which will be fun, and we're going to learn as we go.
We have no idea what we're doing.
We did ranked choice voting, which was
did ranked choice
so wonderful. So I think that's all I got. That's all I got. Okay.
And then Anne, you wanted to. Yes, I got.
So we talked with the mayor as part of our reach out. We're committed to reaching out to existing organizations in town to let them know we're alive and to find out what they're doing. And the meeting with the mayor was great. She was so approachable, so informative. I'm gonna just tell you the highlights of what we talked about. We talked about the elections and governance. We talked about boards and appointments, meetings and public access. She talked about the city and that we have 400 miles of trails within the city limits. It's like so amazing. And community involvement. So it was a really great meeting. And she really put seeds in our brains about the council seats that are open, and she's not re-upping. So we have an opportunity to vote in who we want in the 60 zip code.
And then, so in conjunction with meeting with groups, we have an initiative we're trying to get out, which is becoming a liaison with our existing community groups. So it's called be a PAL liaison. And we will have sign up sheets outside, but essentially there's so many nonprofits here in town. There's Rotary clubs, there's all kinds of groups that make a difference here. We're not trying to fundraise. We're not trying to do any of the things that exist already. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We just want to make sure that people are educated, that you have access to information and you have access to take action. On our website, there's lots of links of like places you can go, information to read about things that are happening right now in Summit County and Park City, Wasatch Back. If there's information that you think we should share or post there, please tell me because I can easily put that up. It takes very little time, but if I don't have the information, we can't share it. So we're just trying to keep up with that. We also have a WhatsApp group that if you don't know or don't understand WhatsApp, we're happy to help you get into that group. There's subgroups about, we have the overpass action Susan will speak about shortly. But these community liaison groups we can't do all these meetings ourselves. We need you guys to help make these connections and say to these groups, like, what are you guys doing? How can you help us? How can we help you? And when there is something that's needed for your group, give us a call. We'll rally and get the troops and whatever that means. If it means we need to elect a council member, or if we need to, get the word out that you need eyeglasses donated for whatever. I think that that's something we'd like to help support. So that is going to be an option after this. And then exciting to end on Susan.
I want to say one thing about what Corey just said, and Sarah gave the perfect example of why we're reaching out to different organizations. When Bernie called, she said, well, how many do you need? And we want to be able to provide that level of support for these existing groups when things come up that they don't have the manpower to handle. Call us. Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah.
It's a lot, I know. And I don't know how many people are new. I think some of the men might be new, but and how much you know about the organization. But there's a ton of information on the website. There's coffee talks on Fridays, there's postcard writings on Sundays, there's these meetings, and then there's a lot of links to what Indivisible is doing and what other organizations are doing so that we can all get involved in different ways. And of course, we're still new and trying to figure it all out. So anybody, June 14th, just quickly, if you're not aware, that's going to be No Kings rallies all over the United States. Indivisible is hosting, 5051 is hosting, Mobilize is showing all of these different events all over the country. And we've been talking about doing something here in Park City. And we've been talking to Sarah too. Yeah, we'd love to go to the Indivisible protest, but we want more protests. We want more actions around the country. So we decided to host something here that doesn't necessarily require a ton of manpower, permitting and all of that. We are partnering with Utah Overpass Action. You may have seen some of their stuff. We're going to be on a pedestrian overpass over I-80 with big letters, and we're going to spell out something along the lines of "No Kings, Stop Trump." We're still working on that. And we're going to be up there. We're going to be wearing our purple shirts, and we're going to be waving and hollering to people and American flags, banners. And we're very lucky with the Utah Overpass Action. They're all Salt Lake based, but once we contacted them, they're so happy to partner with us and come out and show us how it's done. So we're going to be there with them. It will be on Saturday, June 14th. And, you know, we want to do it. We don't want to overlay with what you're doing. We want people to be able to go to Salt Lake. We want people to also, there's going to be another rally in Heber on that same day. You remember last time they organized it, the organizer was expecting about 30 people to show up. This was for the Hands Off rally, and they had over 300. So we're still trying to figure out the right time slot to make it happen. But we will put out more information on the email. So watch for that, or, you know, contact, do you have any contact information?
It'll be on the website.
It'll be on the website, and we'll try and get that information out. We don't do it too far in advance because we don't want to encourage opposition to appear. We kind of want, it's not a surprise attack, but it's not something that we want to be out there for a long time either. We are going to be it's the pedestrian bridge right by Whole Foods that goes across 80. So we're going to be there on Sunday, the 14th. So watch for that. Saturday, thank you, sorry. Saturday, the 14th, and then hopefully we can, we're gonna talk to Sarah.
We did it 2, we could do 10. then
Exactly.
2, Then 6.
Oh, we should have a bus, you know. I could tour them back.
There's also one in Heber, and we're working to coordinate with them as well.
So if we can do ours at 9:30 to 11, and then she starts at 11, you know, we can make it down there. But if a lot of people feel, well, let's just get it right. Do people want to go to Salt Lake for one or both of those events? And maybe we try and slot it in the middle.
Yeah.
Still, I know you're not thinking about it. It's a lot to think about, but please attend at least one event. I think that's what we're asking, and bring a friend. Because, you know, it's going to be great to just get the numbers out there, and we will take lots of pictures on the overpass when we're on the overpass, and we'll flood social media when we're done, and just show that we've done it. I don't remember ever seeing a protest up there. So we're calling it a messaging campaign. Actually, it's not necessarily a protest. It's a messaging campaign. And I don't remember seeing one up there. So I think it'll be a surprise factor in a way. And I think we'll get a lot of attention.
Do you have how do you get the letter?
Utah Overpass Action has already made all of the letters. They've got all of the attachments. They know how to do it. And they are coming to hold our hand and showing us how to do
Can you
it.
do both sides?
Yes, we're going to do both sides of the freeway. Absolutely.
So how many people are you hoping, at least minimum, to be there
How many people minimum?
that you'll need? Like,
We don't need that many. We need 5 probably. But we're hoping
Oh, we want
50. Yeah, we would love, we just can't impede the walkway, you know, as long as we're just exercising our free speech. As long as we don't block the walkway, we'll be fine. So we want to get as many people as possible. There's parking right there, or, you know, go to Whole Foods for lunch afterwards.
Do you have the ballpark time for that?
Well, we were thinking 9:30 to 11, but again, I don't, you know, that would allow us, that would say that we couldn't then go to the Invisible. But there is one at night also.
But they're gonna be big no matter what.
Yeah.
We're gonna be small, but it is the first one here, and I think that if it's the morning and it's gonna make the most sense for us. As much as we do support.
Yeah.
We also have to make it make sense for us. So if there's a. I think we're gonna try to make the best choice based on.
And just one more thing.
How long do you expect something the university to do? Because I'm thinking we get people that are, I mean, coming and going.
Yeah, so ours is 10 to 11:30.
Got it, yeah.
The other thing, the other factor is we are working and relying on Utah Overpass Action, so they've got to approve the time. And so, you know, they've been pretty flexible, but I know they want to, they're doing other things in Salt Lake that same day. So we're kind of at their mercy in a way too. But maybe the next time we'll have all of our own stuff and we'll be able to do it ourselves. All right, well, we'll be out here to mingle and have a little wine or some.
So we did want to get a picture, if anybody doesn't mind, we'd love to get a photograph of this group because this is, I think, the biggest group we've had so far. We're super excited about that. You can stay where you are, or just kind of tuck in. If you don't want to be in this picture, that's totally fine, then step out. But I appreciate that you should stay. And then we have some wine, we have some drinks, we have some snacks, and I just need like 5 minutes to put that stuff out and work.
Does anybody, do you have a lighting?
Somebody must have, you can just do it at 45.
Right there, Cory.
Yes. What, my phone is, right, my phone is the Zoom camera. Okay. Right. So why don't you guys go in there?
We could do a panel, yeah, panel.
Oh, yes, I can do, I can.
Hannah.
Do point, if you do it at 0.5.